Okay, it's 2 o'clock. We actually might get started because I am recording this meeting, and people who might have been on the list and missed it, they can actually watch it in the helpful resources section. And I'll try to put them on mute if they come in during the presentation. So today's presentation is on arguably probably the most used feature inside the system, the checklist builder. We'd have roughly around about 3,000 checklists undertaken a day in our system, being that it's such a popular feature. So hopefully today you'll find out why a lot of our clients are actually using that system, that feature, and why you should be using that feature if you're not getting the most out of it at the moment. So let's just go through this presentation deck that I've just put together, and why is the checklist so important? Well, at the end of the day, it's just a great tool for you to actually do a task to be done again and again the right way. So it's a great way to make sure that everything's consistent, everything's efficient, all these different things are like, as I say to people, instead of actually people having to think, they can just follow a step-by-step task to undertake a checklist. So what it does, it actually creates a better kind of process, a better tool, a better product, a better employee in the end, because they're knowing what they're doing step by step. So what is a checklist? Well, many people think that it's just the to-do item. So really, we have got the to-do list inside the system, but the checklist is different. So the checklist is actually the steps you undertake to take the task, whereas the to-do list is the item to actually remind you to do that task. So completely different kind of minds there. So, a to-do list is what to do. A checklist is how to do it. So when can you use a checklist? Well, you can use a checklist for everything. Inside our system, the online WHS system, you really don't have to just use it for WHS matters. A lot of people actually use it for a lot of different other processes as well. So you might even use it as an orientation checklist for new employees starting. So it might be, opening and closing procedures, even though, yes, does relate to WHS or OHS, but you're looking at, you can also do it in a variety of different things. It might even be a customer service survey. All these different things you can actually use the checklist for. But inside our system, you've got different things that you can actually use it for. One of the major kind of things is when you're actually undertaking an activity. So if you've got activities inside your system with your safe work method statements uploaded, I highly recommend that you actually build a checklist relating to that activity and that safe work method statement to show that they've actually put those processes on that safe work method statement in place, and to show that they've actually read it and implemented it. You can also relate it to safe operating procedures, which are related to usually machinery. So you can actually do that, and you're looking at, if you relate it to the machinery there, then usually it's like a pre-start checklist, or how to actually undertake that task safely. You can actually carry out health inspections, or really at the end of the day, as I say, a lot of people use walkthrough audits that you should be doing on a regular basis, depending on what kind of business you are. So it's a great way for you to actually show that you're trying to actually provide a great housekeeping kind of process within your facility, depending on what business you are, of course. So you can use it to find, what's going on and trends inside of processes. And you'll see I'm going to highlight this feature here with a feature inside the system that not many people are using. So but the big thing is it's actually collecting data to show compliance. That's what it's doing. So it's a great way for you to show compliance by showing a checklist. I'm doing this here relating to this machine or this activity or this chemical or this site to do this. So with the checklist feature, you'll see that obviously your site structure is where you can have your global site up the top, which usually is your company name. Then you've got all your other sub-sites underneath that you might have multi-sites or multi-departments, up to you. So but you're looking at, you can relate a checklist to this site here, and I'm going to show you how to relate the checklist to this site, but also relate it to an individual site if you wanted to, depending on what you want to create. So the beauty about the checklist feature is that it creates a QR code, especially for that item that you've actually created it for. And if you do make it what's called public, hopefully everyone knows what that is now, but we'll go through that again anyway today, is that if you do make it public, when they scan that QR code, it will actually bring up that checklist on their mobile phone. They don't even have to enter a username and password. It doesn't get much easier than that. So the checklist builder, and I'll go live into the system there. A great way, for an example, you can use the checklist builder is, we've got a lot of auto companies. And what they do is they print out their builder pre-start checklist relating to a hoist that they have to do each day. Instead of doing by paper-based, they can develop the QR code for the hoist and stick it on the hoist. They can scan that hoist, that QR code, and it'll bring up their pre-start checklist, and they can instantly do it, but also notify if there's something wrong with it. Another kind of big process is for a lot of our clients, if they've got machinery of any type, especially a forklift, they've got to do a pre-start checklist. They can actually put that pre-start checklist or whatever it may be on that forklift. We do have a new printing machine where we can actually print these QR codes on a key ring. So you can actually order them through Julianne. They're around about $6.50 or $7, depending on how many you order. So but they're a plastic little QR code, and they're literally on the forklift or your machine's key ring, and they're heavy duty, so they'll last for a very, very long time. So let's go into the feature itself. So the checklist can be found in the record management section. If I select on checklist, like every other register inside the system, you have add checklist at the top right-hand corner. You can print a QR code. This is printing a QR code for the entire register, not just for an individual item. Yes, you can create a QR code for an individual item, but you also can create a QR code for the entire register if you wanted to. You can publish this register. This register is just publishing the actual register, not the individual item itself. You can publish it in CSV file, PDF, or whatever it may be to show compliance, to show what you're doing. So let's go to these buttons here. Obviously, view, just like every other button, if I select view, it'll actually show you the developed checklist that you've actually created. If you hit F12 on your computer keyboard, it'll actually take your system into a mobile phone view where you can actually see what it would look like on a mobile phone. Just remembering that all the answers inside your checklist need to be yes if everything's okay. If something's wrong, then they select no. It'll actually open up subsections of adding an action, adding a hazard, adding a maintenance request. What will actually happen when they select that, it'll automatically go into the action register or the hazard register or the maintenance register. The person can fill in this here and email alert this. Later this year, we're updating it that instead of the person selecting on who does it and who, when, wherever it may be, you can automatically preset who's that's going to go to if they've done that checklist. But that is later in an upgrade later this year. I'll just select F12 to go back to normal kind of functionality. Actually, I'll just close that there. If a person actually selects this item here, they can actually upload a photo if you're doing it via your computer. But if you're doing it via your mobile phone and they select that item, choose file, it will literally take the person to their camera. They can take it to the camera or take it to their file. They can upload a picture, just like anything, if you're going to upload something to Facebook or whatever it may be that you do, is that you can actually upload a photo inside this checklist. Let's go back to this checklist here. So you'll see that I've actually opened this field so I can actually select another site if I wanted to. And I've opened this field so I can select another machine. So all these fields are available to open. So if I come back to this checklist, and how do you do that? If I select edit, you'll see the great feature about the checklist builder. It is related to literally most of the other registers inside the system. You can relate it to a site. You can relate it to an activity. You can relate it to a machine. This is picking up all your registers inside your system. You can relate it to a hazard, a compliance. A lot of people say, what is compliance there and why is that there? Well, if you're doing a checklist, you can say, let's just say we'll bring it back to a forklift. So code of practice for a forklift, you could upload it there and you can relate it to a site. Use of activity is use of forklift. Machine would be forklift. Basically, hazard might be collision with pedestrians and so forth. So I'm doing this checklist relating to this activity, relating to this machine, relating to this code of practice, relating to this policy. So what that does, if you are going for some kind of accreditations like ISO accreditations and so forth, it's a great way for you to actually show that compliance. I'm doing this, relating to this, relating to this, relating to that code of practice. So where do you get these code of practice from? Well, if you just go to Safe Work Australia, you can actually type in code of practice. There's a whole list of them you can actually get there. The best ones, though, if you're in New South Wales, if you go to New South Wales, you can actually get all the code of practice and all these documents. So you can download them at no charge and put them inside your system and then relate all the documents throughout your system to those codes of practice. Great way, especially if you want to use the audit builder and get accreditations. So so this field here is solely just for reference. That's what it's there for. So so you can build a checklist. A lot of people, most of the time, a person would actually build a checklist relating to a pre-start checklist. As I mentioned, we've got 3,000 checklists undertaken a day, and most of them are related to some kind of machinery. So if I open that field, if you're multi-site, that means that's where you saw that you can select from the drop-down list when you're in the view section. If I close that field, that means in the view section, I would only see this site here. So if you wanted to relate a checklist solely to only one site and not your global site, you could relate it to Tasmania or South Australia and close that field. And then you can select your activities and select your machines and so forth. So you're looking at, this is going to pick up the list of everything relating to your global site and everything related to South Australia. So if you're seeing all those items there, it's because a lot of them are being related to your global site, because any machine or activity or chemical or whatever it may be related to your global site, which is this site there, will be seen in every single drop-down list. But if you didn't have items relating to your global site and you only had items relating to South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria, etc., when I actually selected South Australia, only the machines for South Australia will be highlighted. So just remember that one if you're multi-sites and you want to do that. But not many people have that kind of functionality. So it's usually basically relating it to your global site and opening that field for the flexibility. So relating to at least one machine. Hence why when you first started, there was a machine name of general inside your system. That's why it was there. So you can open that field because you need to relate it to at least one machine if you've opened that field. That's if you're relating it to a machine. You don't have to relate it to a machine, obviously. You might build a checklist and relate it to a chemical. This is picking up my chemical register. Again, I might open this field so I can relate to every chemical. When I select the view section, it will now create a drop-down box of all the chemicals. So you're looking at, it's a great way for you, especially if you do use chemicals, as to show handling procedures relating to your chemicals and what you've actually done. So technically, you could actually put this QR code, if you had chemicals, at the front of your chemical, where your storage area is, and they can actually scan that QR code and actually do that checklist on handling a certain kind of chemical. Do you have the appropriate PPE? Do you have this? Have you read the safety data sheet? That kind of stuff. So they sign off on that. Please note that anything that you actually relate here to these items here, yes, the item, when the checklist is completed, it will save it in the checklist log, but it will also save it in the log of all these other items. That's why if we actually come to, for an example, policies, if I select code of conduct and select view and select checklist, there, good one, Philip. So I'll select this code of contact. So and I'll select checklist. There, I knew what I had one somewhere. So you're looking at, here's all the completed checklists that I've actually done related to this policy. If I go to a plant item, which is probably the most used feature inside the system, and if I actually come down to hoist and select view, and select checklist, there's all my checklists related to that hoist. So yes, it saved it in the checklist log, but it's also saved it in everything that I've related it to. The beauty about the checklist feature is related throughout the entire system. So if you've built a checklist and you've opened the field, it will be highlighted here in the view section of every single plant item. Sorry, if you open the field in the plant item, it'll be highlighted here in every single plant item. If you've closed the field and related it solely to one plant item, it will be just related to that one plant item. It's a great feature for you to actually then, instead of printing out a QR code for a checklist, printing out a QR code for a plant item, printing out a QR code for an incident and so forth, printing out one QR code, sticking it on your forklift or whatever it may be, and they can access all the checklists that you've actually done relating to that machine or the chemical or whatever it may be. So just highlighting just here with this bit of an upgrade that we've actually put inside the system, you'll see that we've actually categorized it now as plant items as machine and subcategories as well. Please note there's a little bit of a bug in that there. We're just fixing that up. But you're looking at, it should be done tonight. And you're looking at, once that's actually completed, where I'm taking or where we're taking that to is when you're building a checklist, instead of you opening that checklist field and having to relate this checklist to every single item in your plant item, you'll be able to relate it to categories and subcategories. So you'll be only related to hoists, for an example, or you might relate it to forklifts. So, and it's a great way for you to then categorize this checklist as a machine, in here, instead of relating to every single item, which a lot of people are going, oh, I've got all these checklists that don't relate to that plant item. Why can't I actually just build a checklist just relating to one? Well, you can if you close the field, but then you'd have to copy and do all these different things. So there's lots of different ways you can use this feature. So you can open these, anytime you open the field, it relates to, creates a drop-down box for that register. Anytime you close the field, it solely relates to that item. If you close the field and you don't select an item, then that person can't select it, it won't be on the list. So you can relate it to an activity for your safe work method statements, which I highly recommend if you're doing that. You can relate it to your machinery if you're doing pre-start checklists, which again, I highly recommend if you've got machinery that you do this. You can relate it to chemicals, especially if you've got hazardous chemicals, I highly recommend that. If you do have those, I'd definitely go to the code of practice for those items and upload that code of practice inside the code of your compliance register, so you can actually relate that to that item. You could save an example related to a position, volunteer, and all these. Here's another one. You can actually do it. You can actually relate it to an employee. If I open that field, you might build an orientation checklist, for an example. Or some of our clients build a COVID checklist when they were staying at home doing a checklist. So you open that field. If you do this, when this employee completes this checklist and selects their name, it will be seen in the relationship in the employee's history. And a lot of people don't actually understand that the checklist is related to all these different features throughout the system. So if I go view and select checklist, these are all the checklists that Michael Fulcher has done in the system by making sure that he's logged into the system or he's actually selected his name from that open field. So if it's just your employees using your system and it's in-house and not public, it's a good idea for you to open that field so it creates the list that they select from. So let's just leave that open there for a sec. You could do the same thing for contractors if you wanted to. This is going to pick up your contracting companies. I'll just open that so you can see what that looks like. You can relate it to a policy. So again, as I mentioned, you're doing this checklist relating to this activity, relating to this machine, relating to this compliance, relating to this policy. It's a great way to show compliance. You can enter the checklist name, the details, this checklist to be undertaken, whatever it may be. It's a good idea to have this first item, which is going to be the heading, as uppercase. It just looks better. You'll see when we select the view icon. So you've got a choice between making it heading, question, or text. Please note that each question needs to be answered the answer yes to move forward to the next question. If they select no, it's always going to bring up the action, the hazard, or the maintenance. Yes, later on, later this year, we're going to make it even more flexible that you can actually select all these different things and move that around a bit. But at the moment, you can always make a question sound that the answer has to be yes. You know, are there any hazards? No. Well, the answer would be, is the site free of hazards? Yes. So therefore, they can move to the next question. So it's review date here. A lot of people get confused with this review date. This review date is for the continual improvement of this actual checklist. Is this checklist still valid for the item that it's related to or what you're trying to achieve? So that's just solely for continual improvement. So it might be a good idea that you actually just once a year you set your checklist, and usually, you know, that's why we do, say for an example, these kind of webinars in monthly kind of routines. It's a good idea for set your review dates for June to be checklists. So there it coincides with your checklist webinar, the email that we sent out, and then you set that there. You might even set just one checklist as the review date, so you only get one email instead of maybe 10 or 15 or 20. Do you want to be notified? Oh, sorry, this is the person responsible to receive the review date. Please note, to receive the review date, you must set it up in the alert section. So the alert section for checklist up here is solely for the review date, not when the checklist has been completed. It is for the review date. Let's go down to the checklist here. Do you want to be notified this has been completed? Great idea from a client around about 5 years ago. We love these checklists, Phil, but the only problem is I want to be notified that that checklist has been done. Fantastic idea. As you know, if you've been a client for a while, is that, you know, clients give me ideas all the time, and we do listen to our clients. As you can see, the system's constantly being upgraded. Some of the new upgrades have just gone inside the system from clients' feedback. So it's, if it's something that's going to suit everybody, we really look at trying to, you know, push that into the system to benefit all our clientele. But this was a great idea because it's a good feature. Imagine you get a checklist and someone might be out on site. Before, you never knew that it was a checklist was completed. Now you can receive an email to say, hey, hang on a sec, that checklist has been done out that site, or that pre-start checklist has been done. Might be an opening procedure, might be closing procedure, all these different things. Now you can receive an email for it. You do not have to set an email alert up into this section to receive that alert. The alert in the that alert register is solely, as I mentioned, for the review date. If I come down here, do you want to be notified that this checklist has been done via the to-do builder? So you can assign things via the to-do builder in this section up here. And then if it hasn't been done, you can get an email alert to alert you that it hasn't been done. But it's probably a good idea to set it up this way here. Do you want to make it public? Well, the answer is yes. Public means that it's going to create a QR code. If I scan that QR code, it's automatically going to bring up this checklist on the person's device. They don't have to enter a username or password. You do want to set it public. Now, if it's something, it's a checklist, say, for an example, I noticed that Bronwyn from the History Trust is on there, and if it's in one of your beautiful kind of museums there, and it's something that the general public might do, you might select that as no, and then the person would have to enter their username or password. But most of the time, we would select yes. If you do select yes, and just say, for an example, it is something that the general public can actually scan, you would actually definitely have this as no, so they can't see your employee list. Keep it private. But if it's only your employees, it'll be yes, yes, and yes. So if it's public, they can scan it, no username and password. If it's no, So therefore, if you've built a checklist and you've printed out the QR code and you scan it and it brings up the login form, the reason being is because you have not selected yes here. So just select edit and update it. You don't have to change your QR code. It'll automatically update. So let's select update. So that's created my checklist. I can actually come here to toggle information, and I can go print QR code, and it prints out the QR code with the name of that checklist on it, which is pretty good. So it's you can actually then stick that on the machine. But if you've related to the planned item, you can do that. But, you could actually just have save an example. Like we've got a lot of clients who, yes, they like the contractor section, but they've got a lot of contractors coming on and off their site all the time. So as I say to them, use the QR code. They scan the QR code where they can just do a quick checklist, take their photo. Yes, this is it. So they enter their name, take their photo, they sign on screen, and they've completed their checklist. So you've got their name, their photo, their signature, and you're looking at, they can't say that they didn't do the, save an example, the site induction to that item there. So that's a way you can actually do that. So up here is, again, was a good idea from a client. They said, yeah, we want to see the last time and date that checklist was completed, so we don't have to do it again. So that time and date is, when you scan your QR code or when you log in, you'll see the last person actually done that. I've logged in here as Michael, so it'll actually bring up that there. But in this section here, it'll actually, if you've added any actions to this individual checklist item, it'll highlight it here. Same thing with any hazards, any maintenance, any documents you've uploaded, but the main item is obviously the log. So a couple of different things. A lot of people go, well, how can I export it? Well, you can hit on this item here to download that item individually. So you can download that item individually. It'll highlight all the different details, who completed it. It'll even have the photo there if you've uploaded it and so forth. This is your logo up here. Nice and neat. We've actually updated this. A couple of our clients didn't like the formatting, so we have recently updated it to make it much neater. So it's just a great way for you to print out to show that. But you can also export that checklist as an Excel spreadsheet. This Excel spreadsheet or CSV file, so you can actually have this, that it will actually have everything that you've selected as categories, but even the answers that they've entered inside here. So technically, you could actually even use this as a client survey if you wanted to, or an employee survey. But this is going to highlight every single time you've done it. So if you've got an item that you've got to keep track of, it's got to be done every day and you want to highlight that, you can actually print this out and just filter this sheet, and it's going to highlight, say for an example, every single time that checklist has been related to that item. Another kind of feature that a lot of people might know is that you've built a really nice checklist. Yes, and instead of selecting the open field, you've gone, no, I just want to actually just do it again and relate it to another item. But you're thinking, oh, I don't want to actually create that over again. I've just created 20 lines. Select duplicate checklist. All you're doing now is relating it to a different item and submit. So you can, but the thing is it'll bring up duplicated checklist names. So it's a good idea when you're doing that daily start checklist, if you are going to relate it to an individual item, daily, or let's just say there happened to be a forklift pre-start checklist, you might say forklift 1 pre-start checklist forklift, because you are relating it to an individual item. Just change the name so that error doesn't come up, and there's no way we can change that error. So it's so you're looking at, so that's just a kind of little bit of a trick there. So it's and let's go back to these other icons here. What is this field? You might say, for an example, have sections where you're offline for a bit. So you could print out this checklist, get them to complete it offline, and then when it comes on, you could just literally scan it and upload it in here. Or you might even want to upload some previous checklists you've done before, or any information. That's just an upload field for you to use any way you wish. You can actually upload a checklist inside the system. You might use that just for reference, but really at the end of the day, building inside the system is what's going to create the QR code, what's going to make it really, really powerful, what's going to be able to let you relate it to all these different registers inside the system. And it's going to save everywhere else. Whereas if actually just downloading a document and they're completing it, there's no way that it's going to save in all those other registers, let alone in the time, date, stamped, and all these different things that it does. So so that is the kind of checklist feature. It is a very, very popular feature. As you can see, that it has relationships with literally nearly every single register inside the system. So if you are not using this feature, you should be. So you might see that we've now we've finished that kind of checklist feature. I will be putting this into the helpful resources, into the monthly webinars. I'll be placing this one here and uploading that, and you'll see I've still got to do the upload the HACCP one. Sorry, that I did in June, well, whatever month I've missed there. So April, sorry. I'll upload that one there. But you'll see over the year, this is going to take you through a journey of all the major features inside the system. So let's go over some of the new features inside the system. This corporate risk section will actually be inside the system next couple of weeks. We're just updating a couple of things. We did put it in there for a brief thing to let people have a look at, but you're looking at there's just some slight changes we're adding to that, but that is going to be relating to risk management, so corporate kind of risk management, that kind of process, instead of just HACCP. So if you've got to do a, say, an example, a site risk assessment of your sites, you can actually do that. It's a great way for you to actually show that kind of process there. So you're looking at other kind of features that's gone inside the system. As I mentioned, the new plant items are now categorized. So they're inside the system, and you're looking at the new environmental section will be made live. Once this risk manager is being updated in the next couple of weeks, you'll see the environmental section will come back to life again. So, and I will be doing a special presentation on that environmental register later on. I have actually updated this helper relating to the new kind of features inside the system. You might have noticed that we've actually broken up these sections up here and put the alerts and actions just here, and the site kind of features just here, just to make it a little bit easier. All your helpers already been updated, and we'll navigate you around how to use that. Well, hopefully that will help you understand how to get more out of your checklist feature. If you're not using it, you should be. It should be literally your most used feature inside the system, because it is a great way for you to show compliance through all the different things inside your system. Well, thank you for joining. Please note, I did record this. I'll be putting that up. It should be up there in the next couple of days. And if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email. Thank you.